Hey everyone, I'm Noamori Gaming, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to Monster Legends. Welcome to a monster analysis on the brand new maze monster from the Undead Light Maze, Necrolicht, or Necrolight. So, let's see this Monster Legends lore. Necromancer and Barbatos are old enemies. Because of Necromancer's resurrection skills, many souls that belonged in the realm of Barbatos have stayed amongst the living. But years ago, Barbatos had his revenge in the worst way. He stole Necromancer's brother, Necrolight, from the world of the living. Necromancer tried to find Necrolight every way he could, but he was being kept in a high security area of hell. Time passed and Necromancer lost all hope, but then after the cosmic explosion, he heard the new portals that had opened into hell, and he knew that he had to try once again. He crossed the cosmic portal and tried every portal in the network until he made it. He found the right entrance to the underworld and quickly found Necrolight, except he barely looked like Necrolight at all anymore. Hell had clearly taken its toll on him. Nonetheless, the minute he saw Necromancer, he ran to him. It was time to go home. Aww. The two siblings escaped hell, but now without a couple of fights against demons who tried to stop them. Little did the demons know. I bet it's a bunch of heises, like, attacking them. Little did the demons know, when they were together, they couldn't be stopped. Necrolight had been inactive for so long that crossing the cosmic portal had a revitalizing effect on him. He was ready to make up for all the years he'd wasted in hell, but a dark energy he couldn't ignore had grown inside him during his captivity, and it wasn't going away even if he had regained his freedom. And that explains why he has some dark-based attacks even as a light monster. So let's see, he is a light support monster with resurrection and life-stealing skills. He can bring his allies back from the dead and turn them into deadly weapons by giving them extra turns, damage boost, or triple damage. So when we look at the skill sets, it is going to remind you a lot of Necromancer, being able to lifesteal or being able to resurrect. He can also lifesteal and apply reverse healing to a single enemy. He has an evolving trait. At rank 0, he's immune to bleed. At rank 1, he's immune to immediate death. And at rank 3, he becomes status caster, gaining life regen at the start of the battle. So I can just tell you right off the bat, in terms of traits, it is honestly overall not one of the best traits in the game. Immune to bleed, not really something to protect against, right? Especially a monster that isn't really an attacker. Who cares if his damage output is reduced by 20%? Immune to sudden death, I guess that helps against those few monsters that have instant kill skills. Usually though, we see instant kill ultimates, not instant kill skills. And then the self-life regen, that actually is nice considering this monster needs to stay alive to resurrect. However, it's a status caster of course, so it can easily be cleansed away, and there are so many monsters that players have that can just cleanse the whole enemy team or a single enemy monster. So, like, it's okay. This isn't the kind of monster that you really need to rank up to get better traits like other monsters, right? This monster, as soon as you have him at rank 0, he's usable for resurrection alone. So let's talk stats. He starts off with a 72,384 life stat, which is the third lowest life stat for cosmic monsters. It's tied with that of Manipulate, Digale, Vanoss 2099, Kodama, Shelly, Thunderkong Heist, so on the lower end. The power stat is right around the middle. 7568 is tied with that of Seaquake and Undead Mr. Beast. And then the speed stat, this is the most interesting thing about this monster. It is the third highest, or technically the fourth highest speed stat. The only monsters faster are Ignis and Lindworm. Ignis has 59k, Lindworm also has 59k, just slightly slower. And then there's a couple other monsters, Slugazoid, Tabora, Chucklemuckle, that have 5951. So they slightly beat this monster. And the 5918 speed stat is also tied with that of Rotten, who is another resurrection monster. So both resurrection monsters are just as fast. So it's ultimately going to be like, hey, who would you rather use, Rotten or Necrolight? Well, it's really going to depend on the bugs and the situation. And then one thing this monster does have going for him that Rotten doesn't have are the relic slots. So I was right and I was wrong. I called it that this monster would actually be able to hold a revival essence, which is amazing, right? This monster can resurrect, so if he dies, hey, you can come back, resurrect your team, and it's basically like restarting the game, right? All your monsters are back. I didn't think this monster would have an amulet. I really thought he was going to have a cane based on the fact that he's literally holding like a cane or a staff, but he ended up having an amulet, so that could help with sustainability essentially. He can even, if you have Charizard's amulet, you can even do some stamina draining. But really it's just that revival essence that makes this monster stand out. If anything, you can probably compare him to the mythic Lonrad in terms of that, right? Lonrad is light based, Lonrad can hold revival essence, Lonrad can resurrect. Although you're going to see utility wise, Lonrad has a ton of support skill sets, whereas this monster not necessarily so much. So with that being said, he is in the Undead, he is in the Evil Legions, and he is in the Underworld. Alright, let's scroll down and take a look at his skills. So we're starting things off with Lifelink. Deals low light damage, gains as much life as damage dealt. So it's not that great of a skill, right? You're not a damage dealer, you're not really going to be draining a lot of enemy life. It does have a 0 cooldown and it costs no stamina, so you would be able to spam this if you got hit with CDA. The next skill we have is very interesting. Blood for Bones. You resurrect an ally with 50% of your life, but you remove 50% of total life from yourself. And so the reason I say this skill is interesting, because if you look at the cooldown, it has no cooldown and it costs no stamina. So even if you have no stamina, even if you got hit with CDA, and there's plenty of CDA monsters in the game, right? We have Henrich, we have Kodama. Even if you get hit with CDA, you can always resurrect one of your allies. That is really good, especially if you don't have a Megaton monster in play and the enemy is faster and activates CDA and then kills your allies. And also especially with the stamina, right? There are so many relics that will literally zap your stamina to 0, so having a skill you can always utilize is really nice. However, the drawback is that you have to remove 50% of your total life. Now, of course, because this monster can hold the revival essence, even in a situation where you were to do this skill to resurrect an ally, and if you were to kill yourself by removing 50% of your total life, you would come back. So, you know, it can definitely be utilized. You got to be really careful with it. It's very interesting. I do like the kind of like, because I think if it would have been 0 cooldown, 0 stamina, and just a free 50% resurrection, that would have been really powerful. So I do like how Social Point balanced it, and then you really have to think twice about playing it. This is the kind of skill you run only in those team war situations where you're like, okay, the enemy has 2 Nabulines trapped. They're going to drain my stamina. Okay, they're going to activate my cooldowns. I'm probably going to lose a monster. Let me resurrect. And once again, if he dies, you can at least bring him back to the revival essence. So, very interesting. Moving on to tier 1, we have Selfless Spirit. Heals allies by 25, removes 50% of total life from itself. So, basically, you can treat this as your whole team heals by 25% and you only lose 25% because you're going to heal by 25% first, right? So, the net effect is you lose 25% of your life, so your allies can heal by 25 on a 1-turn cooldown. Not a big fan of it, if I'm being honest. If anything, it could help like a Megaton monster or someone that's damaged, but I don't think 25% is significant enough for you to lose 50% of your total life. I think if you could have healed everyone by 50%, then I would have considered it, because then you would have had a net no change. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it, at the way it's just 25%. Everlasting Torment deals moderate dark damage to all enemies and applies negate healing, so this is a skill that shouldn't be overlooked. Negate healing, although it's not reverse healing, it can really make the difference between the enemy surviving or not surviving, especially in those situations where like an enemy has a life regen and they have a bunch of dots. You know, life regen covers, what is it, 20-25% of the life recovery. So if you can just negate that to 0, then the dots can take effect. That's awesome. Not to mention relics. There are so many relics in the game that can heal by so much. So the fact that you can just, hey, negate healing, and then they can't trigger their healing relics, or they will trigger but they'll just waste, that's pretty awesome. So don't overlook this skill. It could come in handy. It's always about the situation, right? It's always about that team war, like when are you going to put this monster, when are you going to use this skill? Moving on to tier 2, we have Bishop of Rebirth. Resurrects one ally with 50% life, gives 1 extra turn to one ally. So that monster you resurrect gets an immediate extra turn and they have 50% of their life. This only has a 1-turn cooldown. That is pretty insane to me on a 29 stamina cost. So you could essentially, this could be your go-to revival skill. And considering the kind of teammates you can partner it up with, you can do so much, right? You resurrect a Lindworm, and then Lindworm can turn transfer into another ally. You resurrect your attacker, and then your attacker can just deal a massive amounts of damage to the enemy, right? Maybe you resurrect an extra turner, and then bam, bam, bam. You resurrect a Megaton monster, they immediately put up their Megaton, right? You resurrect a Shelly, like let's say Shelly, you have Shelly on your team, Shelly died, used Revival Essence, died again, bring back Shelly, immediate extra turn, set up your Megatons, 100% life shield, 100% damage mirror for 2 turns, and you're good to go. So, quite amazing that you have Revival extra turn, and it's not Revivaled 1% life, it's 50% of their life, they are back. So this is 100% your must-have skill. Bishop of Rebirth on 1-turn cooldown, I wasn't expecting that. Touch of Death deals very heavy dark damage to an enemy, gains as much life as damage dealt, applies reverse healing to an enemy. This is really good because basically, as a support monster, you also want to run some utility, right? Going back to Lonrad has a bunch of support skills that makes him good other than just being able to resurrect, right? You have Vega's Feelings, it cleanses your whole team. You have, Loopy's Shot, you remove a positive effect from the enemy monster. So you have a lot of stuff you can do when you're not reviving, right? Otherwise, you kind of end up with a situation where you're just waiting to revive. Even when you look at Rotten, he can give your team like immune to control, I think, or immune to torture. So there's a lot he can do utility-wise. You don't want a monster that is just, let me revive, let me revive. Like if you've ever used Miseris and not used his support skills and you just have the team revival, the single revival, he's literally just recharging most of the time. And even when he can attack, his attacks deal so little damage. Although to be fair, if you're running the right skill set with Miseris, he can at least give double damage to one of your allies. He can at least remove positive effect from the enemy. But you get the point where if a monster is just purposely meant to revive, they're just standing around most of the time. So having a skill like Touch of Death, even though it's single target, I would argue it's better. Again, it always depends on the situation. It's better than negate healing because it's actually reverse healing, right? So if you damage the enemy monster with enough damage to trigger a relic, hey, you're actually packing a big punch because the relic that triggers is actually gonna drain away life from the enemy monster. And you also got a little damage, you also got a little life boost thanks to your Touch of Death life steals. So I would say this is actually a really good skill. You know, you could always target the monster that has a life regen and the relic is going to trigger next turn, and then just applying that reverse healing just kills them. So Touch of Death I think is also a must-have skill you're going to want on your permanent skill set. Moving on to tier 3, we have Defy Death. Resurrects one ally with 1% life, applies triple damage to one turn. So I'll be honest, I'm actually a little surprised that this has a fortune cooldown with a 40 stamina cost, while Bishop of Rebirth has a 50% heal with an extra turn. I would rather take the 50% life extra turn than a revive with 1% life triple damage. You know, based on how it works, right? Really the best benefit you get is if you resurrect an attacker. If you resurrect a deny monster, it's not really going to work out for you, right? There's also the issue with how the turn order is affected when you resurrect a monster. Typically, when you resurrect an attacker, they are not going to go next in the turn order. And again, that 1% life, if the enemy attacks another ally, and then like a Cane Sword triggers, or a Jakugan Sword, or some relic that deals residual damage triggers, that 1% life isn't going to do anything. You're going to die again. Yeah, I'm a little surprised this has a fortune cooldown. I really don't think this is one of the best skill sets. 100% I would rather take Bishop of Rebirth. You could consider running both of these skills. It's ultimately up to you. The last skill we have is Empty the Catacombs, which resurrects all allies with 50% life and applies a damage boost. You could argue that's kind of better. Well, the damage boost, yeah, you're better off taking off the triple damage, but again, that 1% life I can't get over. And with this one, it's a team revival, so if you're the last monster alive, at least you can resurrect both of your monsters. And if one of them is a fast denier, the other one is an attacker, then yeah, the turn order is definitely gonna swap around a lot. There's a lot of factors to consider, like who's alive on the enemy team. Is it one monster, 2, or 3? So I've never personally been a huge fan of team revival skills. I think for defense, you definitely run it. Although the question is this the kind of monster you run on defense? Because going back to the skill set, or sorry, going back to the trait, not a good monster, right? In terms of traits, he can easily get denied. You know, even I wouldn't mind doing CDA, and then I doubt the enemy would run Blood for Bones on defense. But yeah, you can possess this monster, and then maybe he helps you out, resurrects one of your allies. You can freeze him, you can stun him, you can literally do whatever. Apply a bunch of torches to this monster. He has no self-cleansing skill, so I don't think he's a good go-to defense monster because he's so susceptible to getting denied. Even if you put him behind a Megaton monster, like if you're thinking Megatons, Necrolight, and like a Vanos 2099 to deal damage, I don't know. I see the enemy easily getting rid of Megaton and then team denial, and then they easily win. So I don't know if he's going to be a main go-to defense monster. He is definitely going to be a main go-to monster that you bring for offense, and this helps you get 3 coins. So I do like that with Shelly in the game now, and players going to have to face players that bought the exclusive pass. This monster does kind of serve as a beacon of light, because he's light based, to help you get 3 coins, because killing that Shelly and re-killing that Shelly is going to be difficult. But if you have this kind of monster in your team, maybe you give him single life, you go 2 team speed, maybe you go single speed, so he's not that slow compared to the enemy monsters, and you're able to resurrect and control the game and immediate extra turn. And if there's no anticipation on the enemy side, or you got rid of anticipation, this monster can help you secure your 3 coins, right? You have the team revival, you have the single revival extra turn. So I think probably the best skill set I'm thinking right now is you go with Empty, you go with Touch of Death, Bishop of Rebirth, and you go with whatever other skill you want. Maybe then negate healing across the board. No, I'm thinking, yeah, because again, you want them to have utility. You want them to be able to do something. So definitely your tier 2 are your must-haves. Run both of your tier 2 skills, and maybe if you want, you could do the other. No, Fortune cooldown. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Defy Death. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think about that skill? Is that something you would actually consider running, or are you like, no, not really? Because yeah, really, can you imagine reviving like Chuckle Muckle with triple damage? Like, what's it really gonna do? Nothing, right? Nothing, right? If you have Shelly though, then yeah, resurrecting Shelly with 1% life, and then Shelly can go on and do her stuff. That works out. But yeah, that triple damage, to get the most out of it, you're really only reviving your attacker more than anything. So that's kind of my thoughts. For sure tier 2, and run Empty, I guess, for the team revival. I wish he had another kind of utility skill. I wish his healing skill, Selfless Spirit, was a little better. Then get healing again, don't discount it, and Blood for Bones when you're facing stamina draining monsters or 0 cooldowns, run that. The ultimate Finale of Eternity deals massive light damage, gains as much life as damage dealt, applies a 3-turn death count on all enemies, and heals by 100%. It's funny, it does everything. It attacks, it steals life, it gives you a win condition, right, with the death count and if the enemy can't cleanse, and you heal your allies by 100%. So more than anything, considering you're not running strength runes on this monster, it's really just a 100% life heal and a 3-turn death countdown, so it's alright for the monster. I do like him for his resurrection, so I think he's definitely going to be a go-to monster that you can prioritize for offense. Is he worth ranking up? He's worth ranking up to the regard that you just increase his stats, and you're going to have to be able to compete with rank 3 monsters, just because players that purchase the Golden Pass, they only have rank 3 monsters. Players that participate in the team race, they only have rank 3, rank 4 monsters. So, I mean, you do prioritize this monster for the sake of having him competitive to where he's not too slow and that he can revive. So that's my thoughts on this monster. Now I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think about this monster? Any thoughts in the comments below? Thank you very much, and remember to subscribe.